The cold, sterile atmosphere of the hospital intensified the quiet buzz of activity. Dr. Samuel Harris moved quickly but carefully through the emergency ward, his medical coat swishing behind him as he passed the nurses hustling down the halls, trying to manage a dozen different emergencies. His mind, however, was fixed on one patient, Jack Thompson. The notorious criminal had been brought in barely a few hours earlier after a violent standoff with the police. Bullets had grazed his body, and the injuries were critical, leaving Jack unconscious, hooked up to an oxygen tube and several IV lines. His vital signs were unstable, hovering on the edge of life and death. Outside the room, a group of police officers stood vigil, ensuring that the notorious criminal couldn't escape or cause trouble, even in his critical state. Officer Lisa Rodriguez was among them, her posture stiff but focused. She was used to being surrounded by chaos in her line of work, but tonight felt different. The usual anxiety that accompanied her duties seemed heightened, perhaps because of the dangerous man in the hospital bed, or perhaps because of the mysterious dog by her side. Max, her loyal police dog, sat patiently beside her. He was an imposing German shepherd, trained to detect threats, but there was something in his behavior that made Lisa uneasy. He was calm, too calm given the circumstances. Max's intense brown eyes never left Jack's hospital room, his sharp ears alert to every sound that echoed through the corridor. It wasn't normal for Max to be so focused on one individual, especially one who wasn't part of their team. But something in the air had shifted, and Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Inside the room, Dr. Harris stood over Jack's bed, carefully checking the readings on the nearby monitor. His brow furrowed in concentration. The decision he was about to make wasn't one he took lightly. Jack's oxygen levels had improved enough to remove the tube, or so it seemed. It was always a delicate balance in such critical cases, but the doctor had been in this situation countless times before. He had seen patients come back from the brink of death, and he had witnessed many who didn't make it. This, though, was different. The risk of removing the oxygen tube was always there. If Jack's breathing was not stable enough, the consequences could be disastrous. Dr. Harris had a responsibility to make the call, but it wasn't a choice he relished. Still, the man was a criminal, and there was no denying the tension that came with his presence. The officers outside his door were under orders to ensure that Jack couldn't escape, but they also seemed to be holding their breath as the doctor moved closer to the patient. "All right," Dr. Harris murmured to himself, more to reassure his own nerves than anyone else. "We're going to do this." He turned to Lisa, his expression calm but focused. "It's time to remove the tube. We'll have to monitor him closely after, but he should be fine. I'll need you and your team ready just in case." Lisa nodded, though she could feel the knot tightening in her stomach. It was always a tense moment when doctors made such calls, but with Jack's criminal record, the stakes felt even higher. She glanced down at Max again, sensing something unsettling in the air. The dog, who had been so still moments earlier, suddenly shifted his weight, his eyes narrowing as he stared toward the bed. The room felt smaller as Dr. Harris stood over Jack, the rhythmic beeping of the monitors filling the silence. Jack Thompson, unconscious and tethered to a life-saving machine, remained unaware of the precarious decision hanging in the air. The oxygen tube that had kept him alive for hours was still inserted, and the doctor had been watching his vitals closely for the last few minutes. He'd weighed the risks, analyzed the data, and was now more confident than ever that it was time. "All right," Dr. Harris muttered under his breath, as if to steady his own nerves. He glanced at the team of nurses standing by, ready to jump in if something went wrong. "Let's do this." He gently reached for the oxygen tube, his hand steady despite the pressure. Removing it would not only test Jack's physical resilience, but also carry a risk. If Jack's body wasn't ready to breathe on its own, it could cause a sharp decline in his oxygen levels, something that could quickly turn fatal. Lisa, standing by the door with Max at her side, watched Dr. Harris with a cautious but respectful gaze. She trusted the doctor's expertise, but there was a palpable tension in the air. Everything about this moment felt delicate. The officers outside Jack's room were already on high alert, But Lisa knew it was the medical team that needed to keep their wits about them now. She glanced at Max, who had been eerily silent the whole time, his sharp eyes locked on Jack's prone figure. Max had always been sensitive to the emotions and the physical state of those around him, but today the dog was acting differently. His usual calm demeanor had given way to something else, an uncharacteristic intensity that Lisa couldn't ignore. She bent down slightly, brushing a hand over his fur, but he barely acknowledged her touch. Instead, his gaze never wavered from the bed. "Is something wrong, Max?" Lisa whispered under her breath, but the dog didn't respond. He just stared intently at Jack, his posture rigid. The oxygen tube was now halfway out. Jack's chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, the monitors around him steady but vulnerable. Dr. Harris glanced over at the screen once more, nodding in approval at the oxygen saturation levels that had remained normal for the past few minutes. He was confident. It was time. But just as the last of the oxygen tube came free from Jack's throat, a sudden, unexpected noise rang out. Max's sharp bark cut through the room, startling everyone. The dog was suddenly on his feet, ears pricked, eyes wide with urgency. Without warning, he darted forward, charging toward Jack's bed with remarkable speed. Max placed himself between Dr. Harris and the unconscious patient, his body low and tense. His teeth were bared in a protective gesture, but it wasn't aimed at the doctor. His focus was solely on Jack. "Max, no!" Lisa shouted, her voice filled with panic as she rushed forward to control her dog. But Max wasn't listening. He continued to growl low in his throat, his eyes never leaving the man on the bed. Dr. Harris froze, the oxygen tube still in his hands. His heart skipped a beat, unsure of what had just happened. He quickly checked the monitors again. The numbers were plummeting. Jack's oxygen levels were dropping at an alarming rate. The room's tension reached a boiling point. What had just gone wrong? Lisa's mind raced. She grabbed Max's collar, trying to pull him away, but the dog resisted, standing his ground. It was clear now, Max had reacted to something. But what? The doctor's voice broke through the confusion. "Get that oxygen tube back in. Now." Without hesitation, Dr. Harris moved fast, reattaching the oxygen tube to Jack's throat, his hands working quickly but with a sense of urgency. As the life-saving air began flowing into Jack's lungs again, the room seemed to hold its breath. Lisa stood back, eyes wide, staring at Max. The dog's growls had softened, but he didn't move an inch. Max was watching Jack closely, his expression one of quiet vigilance. There was no mistaking it now. The dog had known something was wrong before anyone else had. The tension in the room was thick, and Dr. Harris' pulse was racing as he reconnected the oxygen tube to Jack's throat. His fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the sudden, unexpected shift in the atmosphere. As the oxygen flowed back into Jack's lungs, the room seemed to exhale in unison, the monitors gradually stabilizing. The danger had passed, but only just. Dr. Harris exhaled a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding, though his mind was still reeling. Max stood firm, still positioned at Jack's side. His sharp eyes were focused entirely on the unconscious man, his body slightly lowered to the ground, as though in some sort of silent readiness. His posture wasn't threatening, but it wasn't relaxed either. The dog had seen something the humans hadn't, and he wasn't about to let anyone get too close to Jack without understanding what was happening. Lisa, still holding onto Max's collar, glanced at the medical team. They were busy adjusting the monitors, their hands moving with purpose, but the unease in the air was palpable. "What the hell just happened?" Lisa murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, though the words were heavy with disbelief. Dr. Harris glanced up at her, his face pale, his earlier confidence now shaken. "I don't know. We almost lost him." His voice was low, almost as if speaking louder might break the fragile calm that had settled over the room. That was unusual. I've never seen a dog react like that during a medical procedure. Max's growls had subsided, but he didn't take his eyes off Jack for a second. Lisa felt a strange chill run through her. There was something incredibly unsettling about the way Max was acting. His instincts were beyond sharp. He hadn't just reacted out of territoriality or aggression. He had reacted to something deeper, something in Jack's body that had caused the life-threatening dip in his oxygen levels. "Max," Lissa said softly, kneeling down to him, her voice filled with curiosity and a growing sense of respect. "What did you sense?" The dog's eyes flicked to her, but he didn't move. It was as if he understood her question, his gaze speaking volumes in a language only the two of them shared. Lissa reached out to stroke his fur, but Max didn't respond. His body remained taut, and he continued to watch Jack intently. It was clear that Max's focus was unwavering. "Do you think he could have sensed something wrong before we did?" Dr. Harris asked, as if testing the possibility aloud. His tone was thoughtful, and for the first time, there was a hint of awe in his voice. Lissa didn't answer right away. She knew the bond she shared with Max. She'd seen his abilities in action countless times. But this felt different. Max had always been an incredibly intuitive dog, capable of sensing danger or detecting hidden explosives. But now it was as if he had known something wasn't right with Jack's body before the doctors could catch it. "I don't know," Lissa admitted, standing up and looking back at the bed. "But he's been with Jack for years. Maybe he can sense when Jack's in real trouble." The doctor frowned, his gaze moving between Lissa and Max. "I'm starting to believe that." He took a step toward Jack's bed, adjusting the oxygen levels and making final checks on the monitors. "We need to run more tests. I don't trust the results we're getting right now. Something's off." Lissa nodded, her eyes now firmly fixed on Max. The dog was still by Jack's side, calm but watchful, as though guarding the very life of the man who had once been his partner. There was a silent understanding between them, one that transcended words, and Lissa couldn't help but feel that Max had just saved Jack's life. The realization was both awe-inspiring and unsettling. "Max," she whispered, more to herself than to the dog, "you knew, didn't you?" The dog, in response, gave a small, almost imperceptible nod of his head, as if to say, "Yes." The air in the room was thick with the lingering tension of what had just transpired. Dr. Harris, now visibly shaken, kept his focus on Jack as the monitors gradually returned to normal. The deep, erratic beeping that had spiked in panic was now steady again, though the atmosphere felt strangely uneasy. The oxygen levels were stabilizing, but the doctor could not shake the thought that something extraordinary had just happened, something that defied explanation. Max, however, seemed unperturbed by the whirlwind of events. His intense gaze remained fixed on Jack, unwavering, like a silent sentinel standing guard over the man who, just moments ago, had seemed so close to death. Lissa continued to hold onto Max's collar, her hand trembling slightly as she reflected on what had just occurred. "I've never seen a dog react like that," Dr. Harris repeated, his voice betraying a mix of curiosity and disbelief. "It's like he knew exactly what was happening." Lissa, still trying to process the surreal turn of events, nodded in agreement. "He didn't know. I've worked with Max for years, but I've never seen him act like that before." She looked down at her dog, who was still standing protectively beside Jack. Max's stance hadn't softened. He remained alert, his eyes trained on the injured man as if waiting for something to change. The doctor's mind was racing, and he couldn't help but take another glance at the monitors. Jack was still breathing, but his body had clearly been put through an intense strain. The oxygen levels had dropped dangerously low, and though they had managed to stabilize him, it was clear that his body was still on the brink. What had caused the rapid decline? What had Max sensed that no one else could? "I don't understand," Dr. Harris murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "He was fine just minutes ago. He was stable. What happened?" Lissa took a step closer to Jack's bed, her eyes following the slow rise and fall of his chest. Jack's face was pale, his brow furrowed in pain, but there was no indication that his condition had worsened from the moment Max had intervened. It was as though time had frozen for a brief, crucial moment, and only Max's intervention had prevented the worst from happening. "What if he sensed something we didn't?" Lissa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. What if there was something off with Jack that the monitors couldn't catch? Maybe his breathing, or his blood oxygen level. Her voice trailed off, as she pondered the possibility that Max had somehow detected a subtle change in Jack's body that the machines had missed. Dr. Harris, who had been adjusting the settings on the oxygen machine, paused and looked at Lisa. It's a possibility, I suppose, but we'll need to do more tests, run more scans, and see what we can find. The fact that he reacted like that, it's not something I can explain. Lisa's mind was reeling. She had known Max for years. His loyalty, his intelligence, his unmatched sense of duty. But this was different. This wasn't just a well-trained dog doing his job. This was something deeper. Max had acted on instinct, on a kind of awareness that went beyond what anyone could have predicted. At that moment, Jack stirred. His eyelids fluttered, and a low groan escaped his lips. Max's eyes snapped to attention, his body tensing, though he didn't move an inch. He was still there, guarding Jack with an unwavering resolve. Jack? Lisa's voice was gentle as she stepped forward, her eyes now focused on the injured man. You're safe. Stay calm. Jack's eyes opened slowly, confusion clouding his features as he took in his surroundings. His gaze immediately shifted to Max, who remained poised beside him, his protective stance unchanged. You saved me, didn't you? Jack croaked, his voice hoarse from the tubes and the trauma. His words were slow and disoriented, but they carried an undeniable sense of realization. Max, as if hearing his partner's voice, lowered his head slightly, offering a quiet, almost imperceptible nudge toward Jack's hand. It was a gesture of reassurance, of connection, one that spoke volumes without uttering a single word. Lisa's heart clenched at the sight. She had seen countless moments of bravery and loyalty from Max, but this felt different. There was something unspoken between them, something that was beyond the realm of explanation. Max had known when Jack was in danger, and, in his own way, had saved him. The revelation sent a chill down her spine, and she could only watch as the bond between man and dog deepened in a way she could never have anticipated. The room was quieter now, save for the soft hum of machines and the steady breathing of Jack, who had slowly begun to regain consciousness. His eyes fluttered open more fully, adjusting to the dim light overhead. He groaned, trying to sit up but wincing in pain as his body protested. Max, ever vigilant, remained by his side, his eyes not leaving Jack's face for a second. Lisa stood just outside the immediate circle around Jack, her mind still racing from the events that had unfolded. She had seen Max's capabilities in action, his keen sense of danger, his unmatched loyalty. But this was something deeper, something she had never seen before. She watched as Jack's hand moved weakly toward Max, and the dog immediately nuzzled it, pressing his head gently against his partner's hand as if offering silent comfort. There was a subtle shift in the air, a profound stillness that Lisa couldn't ignore. Max wasn't just protecting Jack in this moment. It was clear he was bonding with him in a way that went beyond mere training or instinct. Lisa could feel it in the way the dog responded to Jack's touch, the way he calmed and settled without hesitation, without fear. It was as if Max knew that his presence was the one thing keeping Jack tethered to this world, that his unwavering loyalty was an anchor in the storm. For a moment, Lisa felt a pang of awe mixed with something she couldn't quite define. She had always trusted Max, had always known he was more than just a police dog. But now, watching this interaction between man and animal, she realized just how deep their bond truly ran. Is he all right? Jack's voice was raspy, still weak from the trauma, but it was clear he was trying to process what had happened. His gaze flickered from Max to the officers and doctors in the room. Lisa stepped forward, offering him a reassuring smile. You're okay, Jack. Max made sure of that. He saved your life. She spoke softly, almost as if not to disturb the fragile moment that hung between them. You're stable now. Jack's eyes shifted between the people in the room, but his focus lingered on Max. The dog, with his unwavering calm, was still there, sitting at the edge of the bed, watching him with a strange intensity. It wasn't the usual protective stance of a trained police dog. This was something different, something more personal. Jack's voice was barely a whisper, filled with awe and something else that Lisa couldn't quite place. I don't know what happened. One minute, I was out cold, and the next, he was there. I thought I was gone for sure. Lisa nodded. Max has always been able to sense things. He's more than just a partner. He's got a sixth sense when it comes to people, especially those he's worked with for a long time. Dr. Harris, who had been silently observing, stepped forward with a frown, his brow furrowed as if trying to make sense of the entire situation. "There's no logical explanation for what just happened," he muttered. "That drop in your oxygen levels was so sudden, so drastic. If Max hadn't intervened when he did." The sentence trailed off and Lisa finished it for him. "We would have lost him." Jack's gaze moved from Max to Lisa, a silent understanding forming between them. He knew, didn't he? That something was wrong, before anyone else did. Lisa swallowed, her heart tightening. "Yes, Jack," he did. She turned to Max, who was now lying next to Jack's bed, his head resting on the floor, eyes still alert but relaxed. "He's more than a dog. He's family." The bond between Max and Jack was undeniable, something that transcended the usual working relationship between a handler and their canine partner. Lisa could see it now, clearer than ever before. Max wasn't just a protector. He was Jack's lifeline, his unspoken connection to survival, and the one being in the room who had known what to do when no one else could react in time. Jack's hand continued to rest gently on Max's head, and the dog responded with a soft nudge, his eyes locking with Jack's in a silent exchange of trust and mutual respect. It was as if the two were speaking a language that only they could understand, a bond forged in years of shared experiences, hardships, and triumphs. Lisa stepped back, watching the quiet moment unfold before her. She realized then that, though she had always been proud of Max's abilities, it was in this moment that she truly understood the depth of their partnership. It wasn't just a matter of training or obedience. It was about trust, connection, and something that words couldn't capture. Max had not only saved Jack's life, but had shown Lisa a side of the dog she had never fully appreciated before. The depth of their bond was beyond what any of them had expected, and perhaps, just perhaps, it was that unspoken bond that would be the thing that saved them all in the future. Lisa couldn't help but smile as she watched them, a sense of pride swelling within her. Whatever came next, she knew that Max and Jack would always have each other's backs, no matter the danger. And that was a connection that no one could ever break. The hours passed, and Jack's condition stabilized further, but the lingering questions about Max's behavior weighed heavily on Lisa. As she sat in the small corner of the hospital room, quietly watching her dog and Jack interact, her mind was consumed by the strange turn of events. She had always known Max was special, capable of feats that most dogs could only dream of. But what had just happened? Why had he reacted so strongly when Jack's oxygen levels dropped? And more importantly, how had he known, instinctively, that something was wrong? She glanced over at Dr. Harris, who was reviewing the medical charts at the foot of Jack's bed, still looking troubled. The doctor had been running tests throughout the day, trying to make sense of the sudden drop in Jack's oxygen levels, but so far, nothing concrete had come up. The machines showed Jack's vitals as stable, but they weren't offering any clear explanation for why he had nearly suffocated in the first place. "What do you think happened?" Lisa asked, breaking the silence. She stood up and approached the doctor, her voice steady but tinged with curiosity. Dr. Harris looked up, his brow furrowed in thought. "I'm not sure. We've done all the routine checks, and everything seems fine. The oxygen saturation dropped drastically, but it wasn't due to anything we can detect with the equipment here. It's almost as if his body, his lungs, just shut down for a moment." He paused, glancing at Max, who was now lying beside Jack, his head resting on the floor. "And then there's the matter of your dog. I've never seen anything like it. It's almost as if he sensed the exact moment when Jack was in trouble." Lisa's gaze shifted to Max. The dog, despite his earlier intensity, seemed calm now, his eyes soft and watchful as he lay by Jack's side. It was as if Max had done his job and now, in the quiet aftermath, he was content to simply be there, ensuring his partner's safety. "You believe Max saved him?" Lisa asked, the words still feeling strange as they left her lips. Dr. Harris hesitated for a moment, clearly torn between scientific skepticism and the undeniable facts in front of him. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I've seen plenty of animals react to emergencies, but Max was different. It was as if he knew something on a deeper level, but I still can't wrap my head around how. There's no logical reason he could have sensed it before the medical team could. Lisa nodded slowly, deep in thought. She had always known Max to be a remarkable animal, but now there was a growing sense that he was more than just a highly trained K-9 officer. There was something almost supernatural about the way he had reacted. Could it have been instinct? Or was there something more going on? A deeper connection between Max and Jack that she hadn't fully grasped until now. The more Lisa thought about it, the more she felt a gnawing feeling that there was more to this situation than met the eye. She had seen Max perform under pressure countless times, but today his actions had defied everything she knew about his training. The bond between them was undeniable, but this felt like something entirely different. A soft groan from Jack pulled Lisa from her thoughts. She turned to see him slowly trying to sit up, his face still pale but alert. Max was immediately by his side, his tail giving a slight wag, as if to reassure his partner. "You okay?" Lisa asked, stepping closer to Jack. She could see the exhaustion in his eyes, but there was also something else, something deeper. Jack nodded slowly, though he winced slightly as he adjusted his position. "I think so. It's all a bit hazy. One minute, I was drifting, and the next, I felt like I was drowning. But Max was there. I don't know how, but he was." Lisa smiled softly, touching Jack's shoulder. "He always will be." The bond between Max and Jack was stronger than she had ever realized. They were partners, yes, but there was something more, a connection that went beyond mere work or duty. In that moment, Lisa couldn't help but feel that there was a hidden layer to their relationship that even she hadn't fully understood. And whatever had happened earlier, it had only deepened that connection. Max, sensing the shift in the room, stood up and walked over to Jack, nudging him gently as if to say, "I'm still here." Jack's fingers curled into the dog's fur, and for a brief moment, everything else faded away. The outside world, the questions, the uncertainty, none of it seemed to matter when Jack and Max were together. It was a silent understanding, a promise that nothing would break their bond. Lisa watched the exchange with quiet awe, knowing that whatever came next, Max and Jack would face it together, just as they always had. But deep down, she felt an undeniable sense that there was still much more to uncover, and she couldn't help but wonder what other mysteries lay ahead for them. The bond between Max and Jack was far from ordinary, and Lisa could only guess at what other secrets it held. The days following the incident were filled with a constant hum of activity. Jack, though still recovering, was determined to regain his strength. The doctors had released him from intensive care, but he was far from being out of the woods. The mysterious drop in his oxygen levels was something they still couldn't fully explain, and while the medical team had been keeping a close eye on his vitals, the incident left a haunting question hanging in the air. What had caused it? Meanwhile, Lisa and Max were staying by Jack's side, as they had always done during times of trouble. Max, never far from Jack's side, seemed to take his protective role even more seriously in the days following the episode. His eyes remained watchful, his movements precise as if he had sensed that something was still amiss. Lisa couldn't help but notice the strange tension between Jack and the dog. It was as if there was a new layer to their connection now, one forged in crisis, and neither of them was quite sure what to make of it. The local police department had launched their own investigation into Jack's collapse, trying to pinpoint any potential external causes. They questioned Lisa, the doctors, and even Jack, though he could barely remember the events leading up to his collapse. The only thing Jack was certain of was that Max had somehow known. That was something no one could explain, least of all Dr. Harris, who had been observing Max with growing interest. In the sterile, quiet room of the hospital, Dr. Harris approached Lisa, holding a folder full of test results in his hands. He had become somewhat of an unofficial part of their team, more intrigued by the mysteries surrounding Jack's condition and Max's behavior than by any medical procedure. He had taken a special interest in Max, and although his scientific mind was initially skeptical, the doctor was beginning to think there might be more to the story than he could explain. "You said Max has been with Jack for years," Dr. Harris asked, pulling up a chair beside Lisa as she stood near Jack's bed. Jack was sleeping, his face still pale but showing signs of improvement. Max was lying at his feet, as if keeping watch, his eyes half closed. "Yes, for over 5 years," Lisa replied, her voice steady but tinged with exhaustion. "Max and Jack have been through a lot together. They've been partners in some of the toughest situations you can imagine." Dr. Harris nodded, flipping through the papers in the folder. "That's what I'm starting to wonder. It's becoming clear that there's something more going on here. We've reviewed the tests, and Jack's body didn't respond to the drop in oxygen like we'd expect it to. There was no physiological reason why his oxygen levels should have dropped so dramatically and so suddenly." Lisa listened intently, feeling a twinge of concern. "So what does that mean?" "It means there's something beyond what we can measure with machines," Dr. Harris said, looking up from the folder and meeting her gaze. "It's as if his body temporarily shut down, but we have no idea why. And then Max, well, Max reacted like he knew, like he sensed it before anyone else did." Lisa felt a shiver run down her spine as she processed his words. She had always trusted Max's instincts, but this was different. Max hadn't simply been reacting to a normal emergency. He had acted like a lifeline, responding to a deeper, unspoken need. But how? Dr. Harris leaned forward, his expression serious. "I think you and Max might be connected in ways we can't fully explain. It's rare, but some animals, dogs especially, can bond so deeply with their owners that they can sense things beyond the normal range of perception. It could be a heightened form of empathy, or perhaps something even more profound." Lisa's mind raced. Was it possible that Max had picked up on something Jack's body couldn't signal? A form of intuition, maybe, or some form of deep primal connection between them. Dr. Harris's voice broke through her thoughts. "I've done some preliminary research into this phenomenon. People who have deep emotional bonds with their pets often report a sort of sixth sense, where the animal seems to know when something is wrong. But with Max, it's more than just intuition. He acted on something." Lisa turned her gaze to the dog, who was now lying at Jack's feet, his eyes watching her. It was as if he understood the weight of the conversation, that there was something more at play here than anyone could articulate. She couldn't deny that Max's behavior had crossed some unseen line. He wasn't just a dog. He was something more, something beyond what even the most experienced professionals could comprehend. For the first time, Lisa felt a growing certainty. Max had known something, something that no one else had. There was a bond between Jack and Max, one that was more than just the loyalty of a partner. And perhaps, just perhaps, that bond was the key to understanding what had really happened to Jack. Max, the dog who had always been a companion and protector, was now something more, an enigma. And Lisa couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning of something much larger. Days passed, and Jack's recovery continued at a steady pace, though the questions surrounding his mysterious collapse remained unanswered. He was slowly getting back to his old self, but the sense of unease that lingered in the air was hard to ignore. Max, ever watchful, stayed close by Jack's side, as if sensing that there was still something more to be revealed. Lisa, meanwhile, couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the edge of uncovering something significant. The idea that Max had sensed Jack's life-threatening condition before anyone else did had sparked a fire within her, a need to understand what had truly happened. She spent hours poring over research, speaking with colleagues, and even reaching out to experts in animal behavior and psychology. The more she delved into it, the more she realized that Max's connection to Jack wasn't just an ordinary bond. It was something deeper, something beyond her ability to fully grasp. She couldn't ignore the growing feeling that they had stumbled upon something extraordinary. But she also knew that finding answers wouldn't be easy. The scientific community had a hard time accepting concepts that couldn't be measured or explained by traditional means. Still, Lisa felt compelled to seek the truth, no matter how difficult or strange it might be. One evening, as Jack was resting in the hospital bed, Lisa sat down beside him, her mind buzzing with questions. Max lay at her feet, his head resting on the floor, his eyes flicking occasionally between Lisa and Jack. She had been thinking a lot about the bond they shared, about how Max had responded in a way no one could have predicted. The doctor had called it a sixth sense, but Lisa couldn't help but wonder if it was something more than that. Max had always been an exceptional dog, but his actions during the crisis had transcended anything she had ever seen before. He hadn't just reacted to Jack's distress. He had acted with precision, as if he knew exactly what was happening inside Jack's body before anyone else did. Was it possible that Max had some form of heightened awareness? Had he been able to sense something even the doctors hadn't been able to detect? Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. Dr. Harris stepped in, looking more serious than ever. "I think it's time we discuss this further," he said, his tone indicating that he had reached a conclusion. "I've been reviewing everything again, and I think I've come across something that might explain what happened." Lisa's heart raced as she stood up, eager to hear what the doctor had uncovered. "What did you find?" Dr. Harris held up a file, a stack of papers that seemed to hold the answers they had been searching for. "After going through all of Jack's medical records, I've found something interesting. There's a possibility that Jack was experiencing a rare and undiagnosed condition, a temporary neurological shutdown. His body might have been reacting to an imbalance, something that we weren't able to detect because it was so brief. The oxygen drop was likely a symptom of that, not the cause." Lisa's mind raced. But how does that explain Max? Dr. Harris sighed, glancing at the dog who was now standing at attention. Max might have sensed it. There's a phenomenon known as mirror neurons, where animals can pick up on subtle cues from their human companions. In rare cases, they can even anticipate a crisis before it happens. I believe Max may have been responding to Jack's subconscious distress signals. It's not the first time animals have been known to react in such a way, but it's certainly rare. Lisa's eyes widened as she processed his words. She had always known Max was more than just a dog, but hearing Dr. Harris confirm her suspicions sent a chill through her. Max had not only sensed Jack's distress, but he had acted on it in a way that saved Jack's life. "Are you saying Max saved Jack because he could feel what was happening to him?" Lisa asked, her voice a mixture of awe and disbelief. Dr. Harris nodded. "That's exactly what I'm saying. Max didn't just react to Jack's physical condition. He likely sensed something deeper, something Jack's body wasn't able to communicate to the rest of us. It's extraordinary." Lisa looked at Max, who was now sitting quietly beside Jack's bed, as if waiting for the next step. There was a new understanding in her gaze, one that spoke of gratitude and respect. Max had always been more than a companion, more than a partner. But now, in the wake of these revelations, Lisa realized just how profound their connection truly was. It was something beyond training, beyond instinct, something that tied them together in a way that defied explanation. As Dr. Harris continued speaking about the possibilities of this rare neurological condition and how it might have affected Jack's body, Lisa couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the journey that lay ahead. There was still much to learn, but one thing was clear. Max was no ordinary dog. He was a guardian, a protector, and a part of Jack in a way that went beyond the physical. And now, with the truth slowly coming into focus, Lisa felt a renewed sense of purpose. She would protect Max as he had protected Jack, and together, they would continue to face whatever mysteries lay ahead.